Okay, so today, Gus Martin, you were formerly a fatty McTumsheheed, obese teenager,
I was.
who then transitioned into being a Royal Marine for several years, after which you spent some time in construction, I believe,
Prior and after, yes.
prior and after, followed by a career in personal training in person in London,
Correct.
followed by a career online coaching now living in Saudi.
Correct.
That's the brief overview. Let's take it back to Dundee in the 1950s when you're a teenager. Very nice. Talk to me. What was life like for Gus pre making the decision to become a Royal Marine, pre making the decision to lose the weight and get in shape?
I had a good childhood. I grew up born in Dundee, grew up a little bit in Dundee, then moved across, just across from Dundee in a little town called Newport-on-Tay. So all my family are from Dundee and went back and forth. It was good. It was good. I was basically a skinny kid. You know, I've got tiny little wrists and I'm naturally quite a skinny human. But as soon as I hit about 12, 13, I went. My parents are separated, so my dad lives on the west coast in a town called Oban, or certainly close to it. Used to go there for the summers, and I would get two things. I would get exposure to the building trade. Right? Three things: boredom, and then food to quell that boredom. So I started putting on weight when I was a teenager, and basically, you put it on, like, you'll know yourself, Alfie. You've done it. It's like you kind of like. I think you said to me one day that I can still see the abs, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. So, but it wasn't until I got to about 16, 17, and I was like, I went on a rugby tour at Ireland, right? And it was mostly about the lash, but I saw myself in the mirror and I was like, oh my God. Anyway, fast forward a few more years, I was at my peak. But the actual period of like a teenage life, on the face of it, didn't let it affect me. I was always that confident kind of guy, internally massively insecure about it. But I thought, like a lot of people still think, it's a hormonal process, particularly going through puberty.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee it wasn't. It was called eating pizzas, okay, from a place called Oreos in Oban, and then continuing doing those things, okay, and like piling in the calories and just not realising.
Munchie boxes will do that to you,
They definitely will.
regardless of the hormone fluctuations of a teenage boy. It's such a typical thing, particularly for mums, to say to their sons who are, they're getting a bit bigger. Oh, he's a growing boy. He needs to eat. Oh, he's just a bit bigger, and you let yourself tell yourself that for a long while. And then you sort of look at yourself, I sort of remember it was like, 17, 18 when the bounce gets a little bit harsher and you go from being, Alfie or Gus to being fat Alfie or fat Gus. And then you really start to notice the difference between you and your peers of like, oh, I'm very different to the people around me. Maybe in Dundee it was a little bit different.
I was going to say, so the difference with your situation and my situation, and it was purely because like training wasn't so big in the younger generation, so there wasn't that much disparity, and there wasn't that much obvious in terms of behaviour traits. All my mates were out drinking from an early age. All my mates were eating shite food when I was eating shite food with them. The only difference is I was continuing to eat shite food away from them,
Yeah.
Whereas your generation, and they're a lot more cruel, obviously. But there's definitely a culture of going to the gym, isn't there, when you're younger?
Yeah, it's more so now, but there was definitely an aspect of after school, the boys would go to the like local gym group or whatever, and you're doing, even as a younger teenager, because I gained weight a lot faster and a lot later into my teenage years, but I do remember going to the gym, especially through my growth spurt, because I was like chubby as a child. I grew sort of leaned out and going to the gym with these guys, and I was like, I quite like this is good fun. I was like noticing I was stronger than some of the other boys there. I mean, probably doing like the most horrific technique imaginable, just shoulders crunching and just being like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, I know, man, you see it, but at least you were going, at least you were going, like, yeah. I mean, generally I had a good childhood. Like, it was cool. I didn't really notice anything shizer about it. I mean, I lived in a nice enough place, but like, we were definitely the poorest family, okay, within my friend group. So when you reflect when you're a bit older, I realised that had some significant effect on us. And the other thing as well is like, less so. You don't get it in London so much now, and even where I'm from, it's like that you really stuck to where you were from. So areas like scheme you grew up in or town in which you're at. And my mum moved around. My mum was the worst person in the world, okay, in terms of finances. She's a lovely human, but she gave us this upbringing. She did her best, but she sold houses to finance our life. So downsize, and it creates a lot of disruption, within your life, and that massively affects it. I didn't realize at the time, put on that brave face, but it massively kind of give me a huge security drive, which now as an older man, actually, I have to fulfill significantly with cash and stability, and like coming to London as a 30-year-old, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. When you move around in different places all the time, I realised actually why I was all over the place, and like struggled to form relationships and all that sort of jazz. So that's
all links back to there. No, that's all good. So through obviously you've just ran us through there how you sort of got overweight in the first place. Was there a specific moment that led you to the impetus for change? So I know you joined the Marines a bit after sort of losing the weight, but what drove you initially to say, right, something needs to change here?
Wow, it's pretty shallow, right? But so I moved out. I was the first of my pals to move out. I just turned 17, and I had this. I mean, if anybody's from Dundee, like Albert Street in Dundee, it's pretty rough. But like I thought it was cool, like because I had mum and pad. I wasn't getting any action. Or any of the action I was getting, was, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to the girls, but like substandard for what I desired. But it took quite a bit of that, and then people teasing us a little bit about it. And I was like, there was one incident in particular, which I'll not name the lassie's name because it would be really unfair. But she had like knickers that kind of held in her gut a little bit. Now she wasn't like a monster, you know what I mean? Like she wasn't.
Oh, this is going so well already.
I seen when she left in the morning, and I was like. I'd been at the college with her when I was a younger lad, and I was like, "Oh, fuck, I'm not doing that again." And that was it. That afternoon, I went down from my flat on Albert Street, and I want to just set the scene right away. I'd already broken my single bed, like about 6 months before.
I had also done that as a 120-kilo young man. Just
so,
like.
And this is despite. In fact, I'll tell you the thing about. So 6 months after that, obviously I'm pumping on a mattress on the floor in a flat in Albert Street in Stobswell in Dundee, and I was like, I've hit a low here. I've hit a low, and so that afternoon I walked down to Argos and bought an exercise bike, like old school. You had to tighten the band to kind of increase the resistance before you got on. I think it was heavy as fuck. Carried it on my shoulder all the way through the Wellgate Centre, all the way up the brain. It's a good couple of mile, and I was like, no, that's it. So that was the moment. So I'll not mention that person's name, but thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it was after meeting you, so the journey had already started in regard to me sort of getting in shape and losing all this body fat. But I think it was either the day I met you or the day afterwards, when I was still, smoking like 40 fags and spending all day in bed. But I went for a run on Hampstead Heath, which is near where I'm from originally, and everyone who I went to school with during the summer, you will bump into somebody you know. And I was going for a run up there. I was in my big baggy tracksuits thinking, oh yeah, nobody's going to notice how fat I am, having like not left the house in 3 months. And again, I won't name these boys because, to be honest with you, I should probably say thank you to them. But I was running through Hampstead Heath. I probably made it like 500 metres in or something, just blowing out my arse. And I bumped into these two guys I hadn't seen since like 14, 15 years old when I left school. And they were both just laughing at the fact that I was running. And I was like, yeah, something really has to change here. And I think motivations can be shallow. And to be honest, those sort of more primal, as it were, motivations can actually drive people a lot better than, peripheral stuff. Like health as a younger guy is something quite hard to conceptualize. Like, oh, if I, stay this fat forever, I'm going to be unhealthy, but you don't feel it yet, which is, I think is a big problem for people, especially guys who are successful in their careers, successful in the dating market, despite the fact that they're not in the shape that they probably should be in. I've always found they really struggle with the motivation to go through the process when compared to, say, a teenage boy in that situation, because they haven't got the sort of self-confidence yet, or at least most of them don't. So for guys who are much more successful in their everyday life, who are a bit overweight, want to get into shape, but they have the feedback of, you know, they have power at work, they have, you know, some level of value in the dating market. It's much harder for that box to sort of tick and get that drive, and it requires a lot more push.
It's interesting when you talk about that. I think about Steve Peters, you know, like the guy who wrote the Chimp Paradox.
Yeah.
And he talks about the triangle of change. I'm trying to remember the 3 points, but 2 of the points, one of which is psychological mindedness, i.e. you have to be in your mind ready to change. But the biggest driver of that triangle is pain or pleasure. So you have to be in a really uncomfortable spot. Most of the time it's uncomfortable and you have to get out of it. It can't be uncomfortable, it has to be unbearable. Or like for people who really like to achieve, you know, like you're quite driven like this, I want to be this at BJJ, you know, that sort of stuff. That isn't for me. I'm not lit up that way, but most people are lit up in the context of, this is so fucking uncomfortable, I need to get the fuck out of this. And ridicule is a wonderful way to feel that very acutely. And as a man, or an aspiring, like, you know, young man, that sensitivity of that ridicule, you won't show it outwardly, but you'll feel it inwardly. And like that was enough, I think, for both you and I. Go, like, fuck this. Like because I was getting the piss taken out of me by my mates, pumping ugly fat birds, right? Which is really disrespectful towards women. But that's what I was feeling. That was me back then. Like I now think about that, I think, Jesus, how primal.
Yeah,
but
that's what you deserved at that point.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
and interesting. I that was my biggest driver. Like if you told me at the school, right, as I didn't pay attention, right, any time, okay?
Yeah, I still don't.
Well, it took me to 30 to actually pay attention to any form of education, right? It really did. Apart from being in the Marines, so they educate you all the time, you just don't realise it. But if they tell me, because I'm quite into language learning now, if they said, right, Gus, if you go to the French class and the Spanish class and the German class, and if you can speak basic level of that, when you go to those countries or girls come across, and they did come across and stayed in my house, the French girls, if you can chat to them, it doesn't matter if you're the ugliest bastard in the world, right? You'll be able to chat to them, so the chances of you pumping them is far greater than the guys who can't speak the language. And ironically, during my 20s, I went on many Scotland trips, and I went away with a boy called Jim Hollywood. Great lad. Like, he'd be like, he went away when he was in his mid-40s, I was in my mid-20s, so how he survived, I don't know. But he knew how to speak German and French. Small guy, Kilmarnock, slightly portly, but all the chicks loved him because he could speak the lingo. So why am I referring back to that? I realised at that point, that's what the teacher should have said to me back in the day when I was at the school. Listen, you want to pump the chicks and finger the chicks, learn this, you'll be able to do it. And I would have been, right, let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
You would have been on the button at that
On the
point.
button. That's the pleasure element, right? But the pain element, okay, of that part of the change is like, is feeling that ridicule, isn't it? And feeling like shit and like thinking, fuck, this is never going to happen, and I fucking hate myself. Yeah. And like, there's a little bit of self-loathing goes a long way if it can be turned into like, well, what's the thing on the Adam Sandler film, Tackling Fuel, you know, he talks about his mum. You can use that negativity to really drive positive change. Right? Too much of it, obviously. You end up killing yourself. But
oh, gracefully articulated as always. But yeah, definitely, like, it is a certain amount of negative emotion towards something can be the sort of catalyst for change, but it can also tarnish the experience in and of itself. Sure. Which sort of brings me on to the next point, which is you then making the decision after. So you've got into shape now. You've got your Argos bike. I believe you trained with somebody.
So it was Dundee's not a particularly fitness culture, but it's definitely getting better. But back in the day, I think there was a David Lloyd had just opened up in like Montefieth, which is a wee town just outside of Dundee. It's really part of it. There was like those council gyms, you know, like they're not like the ones you get now. Council gyms are pretty cool. The Olympia Centre was shite, right? And then there was one at Lochee, which I used to go to as a kid. It was all right, right? But quite hard to get to. But a wee gym opened up literally just 2 doors down from us, right? So I stayed at 95 Albert Street, and I think it was like 85, right? And for a sauna, it had a steam room. It didn't have a cold plunge. But that's not it. But I went in, I had this offer. I think it was something like 10 quid a month, man. Right? I don't know. But you walked in and it had all the basis, all the machines that I kind of recognised. But it had a boy there, right? He did now, unfortunately. I didn't know he owned it actually at the time, but he did. And there was just basically nobody there. And he took me under his wing and just showed me the basics of like training, like I showed you, and told me the basics of nutrition. And his recommendation actually was this: eat breakfast, eat dinner, okay, skip lunch and just be active. Yeah. Right. And have it's like, it seems so obvious. Have a protein-rich one of each, right, and just create your calorie deficit that way.
Yeah. Simple but effective.
Super simple. And at the weekends, flip it and have like a brunch and then a dinner because you're going to be more social. Because I like to go to the Lash. I wasn't shocked. I've always gone to the Lash, as you know. And I was like, oh, okay. And in 6 months, he's just like, is there anything else? And he's like, no. Yeah. And he obviously, as I started to build a little bit of a physique, and I say that very, very, very sort of like,
tentatively,
is that he's like, well, now the emphasis has to go a little bit more on the training side of things. Like the nutrition, you don't switch off, but like add a bit more carbohydrates because you're driving your training a bit more, blah, blah, blah. We know all that score.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was that simple. And it wasn't like he was there every day helping me, like when I was training you, but he would be in the background because there was nobody fucking else in the gym. Yeah. I mean, it shut after about 7 months. So I was lucky I got that. Yeah. And that was it. Yeah, that was it. He's just like, I don't know what happened to him, unfortunately. Okay, but he was a nice guy, like. Yeah. Well, he did, but I didn't know what happened to him after.
Yeah, chance of luck, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, like, yeah. That was. I moved. That's how I didn't end up staying at the gym. I moved to Brown Constable Street, which wasn't that far away, but there was a gym closer.
Yeah. God forbid you get some extra steps.
Well, I thought it was Johnny Big Bollocks going to. I think a new gym opened like in the town, so I ended up going to that because I thought I was a bit more confident then.
Yeah. You're a gym guy now.
I'm a gym guy. I mean, there was no chicks. There was me. That was it. Yeah. That was it.
Okay, so you've got yourself into some pretty decent nick now. You've moved down the road. Nicer digs, I'm assuming.
No, actually worse.
Worse digs.
Coldest flat I've ever had, like Brown Constable Street. Fucking hell, it was savage. That prepared me for Norway.
Was the mattress now on a bed frame?
It was on a bed frame and it was my own gaff. I was staying with Gordy the wanker before. He's not actually a wanker. Just because my cousin caught him in the stairwell. He made it up actually. Yeah. My cousin made it up, the bastard. But Gordy's still got that nickname to this day.
Good, I'm glad. Shout out Gordy. Okay, so you're in some better shape, and then at some point you make the decision to join the Royal Marines, which is interesting.
I didn't actually make the decision to do that. It was somewhat made for me. So my two best pals, two twins, Richie and Neil, their father was a big influence in my life. A guy called Reg Whitaker, and he's got the rich dad poor dad kind of thing. Yeah. Like it wasn't that. It wasn't about cash, but like Reg. I love my dad, and I've got a great relationship with my dad. But Reg was like my second dad. He always looked after us. He kind of like, my dad's a bit of a maverick and like just fucking does what he wants. Like, he's a bit chaotic. Reg is like he was like an officer in the Air Force. And I really responded well to his like structure and his discipline, despite outwardly going, oh, what a load of shit, there was that. So his two boys, two of my best pals, they were like, oh, well, if we don't manage to do this, and that, we're going to join the Marines. Right? Okay, and we'll do this intake. And I was like, oh, okay, that's an idea I never really thought about. And then it's probably important to get, during this point, I was like partying hard at the weekends in Dundee. And like from my mum's perspective, she was like, what the fuck's going on? Like, drink, drugs, smoking. I wasn't smoking so much then, but she was a bit worried about it. Yeah. So it was a combination of like my two best pals saying they were going to join, and then my mum like worrying about me. And then one day this old style bit of post come through the door, and my mum had done this, cut out this thing in the Dundee Courier. And it said, meet the Marines. Yeah. And they were down at HMS Camperdown, which is down in Dundee. It was down in Dundee, it's no longer there, unfortunately. Which is a building attached to the Navy. And I went down there and, so I was like, okay, that sounds good. And like it listed the things. Yeah. So it listed, it's like, do you like exercise? At that point, I liked exercise. Would you like to live with your friends? I was like, I do like that. That'd be good. Do you like drinking? Aye, I like drinking. Right. Would you like to learn how to soldier and ostensibly play with guns? Aye.
Yeah.
And would you like to be paid to do it?
Yeah.
Aye. Would you like free food on this day? I was like, aye.
So that whole thing of like Corporal showed me camping guns and hanging out with the boys, and I liked all three of them, so now I'm doing this forever.
Pretty much it.
What were they doing down there? Were they doing a bit of a display? Were there lads on ropes, bit hand-to-hand combat, that type of deal?
You know, it wasn't even that extensive. That's how basic I am. So they did a training session, a phys session, right? Yeah. So we got there. I don't know. There must have been 30 folk there, and they did a little brief, you know, about the history of the Royal Marines. They'd done a little bit of a mingle and chat to get to know you a little bit. And then they did a phys session, so they had a PTI there, and they thrashed the fucking life out of us. Like, one of the hardest training sessions I've ever done in my life. Like, it was brutal. But I kind of liked it, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, I was obviously quite fit at the time, and a lot of the lads couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I think it's like 3 of us finished it, you know? Like, there wasn't a high caliber, right? Like, let's caveat that. But then they gave us food and booze after.
Nice.
And they said, like, right, we want you to do it. And yeah, I was like, okay, cool.
So you signed the dotted line there?
Well, I didn't. I had to go to Glasgow at the time to do. I don't know why I didn't do it wherever it was, but I had to go to Glasgow. I remember that. I had to do a medical because they had to check.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the medical was passed, both sign. Right. Okay.
Off you go.
Off you go, Limpston.
Did you do your PRMC first?
Oh yeah,
that,
yeah.
Or was that not a thing in those days?
No, PRMC was the. No, I had to do the medical first.
Medical.
And I stood down at Limpston to do the PRMC. Yeah.
Okay. Did you train for the PRMC specifically?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Well, no, not actually, no. I mean, I was... The phys session that they did was basically a session through the PRMC. Yeah. So, like, if you basically were able to finish the session, okay, it was probably a good sign that, okay, that you could do the training. But there wasn't that much time between the PRMC. I mean, the medical was the week after. I can't remember how long that was, but it wasn't a long time. And I went down and that was all right. I smashed that. It was hard, obviously, very hard, but I didn't find that particularly, like, I don't remember it thinking, fuck, I'm never going to be able to cope with that. The only thing with the PRMC is I almost failed it on pull-ups, actually. Yeah. Because I trained, we did so much fizz on it that, like, they get you to kind of, they don't get you to do too many rope climbs, so you're not climbing to the top of the rope, but they'll get you to do, like, heaves and stuff. Yeah. My forearms were so blown out that I couldn't meet the standard. I think it's like 5 you have to do on the PRMC.
And it's on the beam as well.
Yeah. So my forearms were killing me. But they wouldn't be able to do this now. They took me on chance.
They took me on chance
because they'd seen, they said, like, well, you're strong and fit and everything else. And I said, I can do this, but I couldn't. You know what I mean? And they took me on chance.
I don't know what application rates are like at the moment.
I don't think
I wouldn't know. I think it's also called something different now as well.
Yeah,
the
PRMC
is something else. Different, yeah. Anyway, we won't dive too deep into that. So, PRMC done. You are off to Limpston now. So, an amount of time elapses where you are now going down to train. For those of you who don't know, the Royal Marine training process takes how many weeks?
32.
32 weeks, and it's 32 weeks of lots of cuddling. It's quite easy. There's lots of yin and yang, morning yoga type deal. How was that?
Yeah, for me it was all right. I mean, it was foot and mouth at the time, so there's quite a few breaks. Yeah. So there was an element of that. We had to stay at Norton Manor Camp for a bit, which is 40 Commando. Transported out, but you get to live with your mates, you get paid. You know, there's not much sleep and stuff like that. But as a young man, like, I was 21 at the time, so... and because of the foot and mouth, I got quite a lot of breaks home, so it wasn't that bad actually. Like, in terms of some people have to really suffer from it. The only aspect, okay, that I found really challenging was towards the end when you start to do a bit more shooting, and I was shite.
Right.
And that was I failed my PWT. I mean, I don't know how many times, like, and it was a real shot. I mean, that is a real humbler. Okay, I think I was possibly the worst shot ever. I just assumed I'd be good because I was good at. I wouldn't say I was the best at it, but I'd be like second or third fittest or best in my troop for everything. Yeah. Because it's just if you apply yourself and you're willing to go to the pain caves, you get pretty good at stuff. You can't do that with shooting. No. So that was the only thing I found really challenging about it.
Did you ever get good at it?
I did, yeah. Because it's about relaxing. Shooting's about relaxing and breath, like, and bone support. So you've got to get your, ironically, it's like exercise. You've got to get your setup right each time. you've got to be relatively relaxed to get the appropriate times. You can't force it. You can't use muscle. Okay, you've got to kind of like get skill and alignment. And I mean, I was so bad at it that they gave me a patch. Like a fucking pirate, man.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm sure you didn't catch any flack at all for that.
None. It was a guy, it's a PW, so platoon weapons instructor called Paul Wilson. So I was the guy who took me through training, and he was, he's like, how the fuck are you so shit at shooting, Martin? Youngest mountain leader, like sergeant in the Corps history, like ended up becoming like fucking not company sergeant major, like fucking unit sergeant major for like 42 Commando. Like, he's a fucking amazing guy. But he introduced me to this guy called Paul Wilson who helped us, and he just, some people, it's a coach, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, and as soon as I realised what I was doing wrong, I could do all the things to get right, and then I got marksman every time.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like, I wasn't like, going to be sniper or recce fucking patroller, like, you know what I mean, or recce troop, but I was good. Like, I got really good. Like, but I was a young lad, and I just assumed I'd be good, so I just try harder. That doesn't work, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Just try harder at things you're already failing at.
Yeah. You can't white knuckle it.
Nah, not really. Like, not really.
Okay. So you went through that. You ended up passing out first time round.
Well, I got injured.
Yeah.
Hurt my Achilles, so I couldn't do commando tests. Like, cause they chop and change the order. I couldn't go to commando tests for basically almost 2 months because my Achilles was fucked. Like, I did like the pre-work, and like I couldn't tie the laces on my boot. My boot was that swollen,
Yeah.
And you don't want to not do it, like, so I actually passed all the tests, but didn't do them collectively. Like the commando tests, like to pass out. Like the only one I didn't do was the 30 miler because you're only doing that once, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to wait basically 2 months.
Okay.
So that was a bit shite. But yeah, as soon as I actually, when I done you do like the commando tests. Okay, this is the 9 mile speed march, and then you've got the endurance course, and you've got the Tarzan assault course, and you've got the 30 miler, and they do acquaintance of all these courses. So it's just to get you a time, see where you're going to be. You know what I mean? So they can put you in order within your troop. And I'd done the endurance course at Quaint before the Tarzan actual test. And the endurance is basically on Woodbury Common. You run around like 3 miles, okay, of tunnels and like Pierce Pool and all that sort of stuff, getting wet and miserable. And
Is that with the sheeps?
Yeah, the sheeps there and all that sort of stuff. And then you hightail it back to the camp, like 6 miles, I think it is. Like, I should know this by the back of my hand, but I don't remember. And they've got these little Smarty tubes where you crawl through it, and it's been raining. And there's a small one and there's a big one, right? And you've got webbing on, and you've got a rifle. Right, so you're basically crawling backwards because the water's so high, and it was so high, but it's still water.
Yeah.
So I'm like taking this water in, and the water's not like beautiful and clean. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's rank. Right? So the following day, oh god, I was like, oh Jesus, I don't feel so good. Like, but I'd already done this Achilles thing, so I didn't want to wait again. So like on the Tarzan course, high course, 30 minutes of hell, 12 minutes of hell if you're good, 11 minutes if you're really good. And I'd ran it in like 11:30 or 11:40, I can't remember. It was pretty quick, or just under 12, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then I went to do it again. And you come off like the Tarzan assault course onto the Tarzan course onto the assault course, and I ran over the 5-foot wall. And as just as I pressed up on the wall, my fucking whole guts just fucking exploded out of me. I shot myself. So I had that moment.
Eye patch and
I know.
yourself
But ironically, the eye patch is actually, you get no kudos for that. For shiting yourself, you get lots of, which I'll tell you about. So I made that instant and I thought, I can't continue, because I wasn't feeling good either. I was a bit dizzy.
Yeah.
But you've just done a hard bit, and I'd already done obviously the assault course as part of like, you have to do that, right, to get from like week 20 on to like. So I thought, I can do this. So I made a decision, kept going, right, okay. And you get to the 30-foot wall, which is the last obstacle, and you're climbing up the 30-foot wall. And it sounds a lot, but the 30-foot wall is actually relatively easy, and you've probably seen it yourself, Alfie. It's just a rope, and you're climbing to the top, and you get to the top, and they slap you in, like, well done. And like, how do you feel? I was like, just shot myself. Right? And they thought it was metaphorical. So you get into your troop, okay, and you double back to the grots, go to the grots. I just thought, well, that's my trip. So I just pulled down my brakes and I had shite all the way down my legs, and I had to tip my boots out. There was shite in my boots. You know what I mean?
You literally filled your boots.
Oh, I did, man. It was honestly, it was horrific. And like lads are like all huddled around one shower. I had 3 showers to myself with shite all over myself. Until to this day, you know, when I see guys that I passed out with, they're like, you're the guy who shot himself, and they're like, you know, they give you like, hey. Whereas like eye patch guy, like, like you.
That is wonderful. Oh, beautiful stuff. Okay, so you ended up passing out after shitting yourself and collecting an eye patch. After that, you spent some time in the Marines throughout your career, in which you actually became a PTI, so you ended up being the shouty man in the white vest yourself. In sort of accordance with you going through training, watching other people going through training, people dropping out, etc., and then also training people to be Marines yourself, were there any sort of characteristics that you witnessed in people who were more and or less successful? And sort of as a punctuation to that is, do you think resilience is a skill or a trait?
I think resilience is definitely a skill which you have to continue to practice, because I think you can have it, you can see it in people's lives at periods in their lives. And then like being a Marine is something that you'll always be, but I've seen it with people actually who have trained, who've been in the Corps before me, done better things than I've ever done, and yet be weak as toffee later in life because they've been sat at a desk or whatever. And I say weak as toffee, like, you know, they're still headstrong and all that sort of stuff. So I think it is, well, maybe they're not headstrong actually, but I think it's a skill you have to continue to practice, right? Characteristics of people. As soon as I went into training, I had a pretty good gauge of who was going to pass. So there was 3 people passed from the 53 that started with me. Now there was a few things that went with that. Like you had foot and mouth going on, so extended training a lot, and mitigating, and a couple of guys eventually passed out. Actually, to be fair, so it's probably closer to 5. But certainly, I used to see it a lot more. When I was taking people through training, I could tell the characters, and it was like it was just the commando values that people had, and people when they were it's how invested they were within this. Not necessarily if they're buying kit or anything like that. They just listened and fucking paid attention and just knew the score. Like they wouldn't do silly things. They would listen to what you were saying, and even if they didn't agree with what you were saying, because you could tell, right. They were savvy enough to know, not get myself in shit here. And that was a telltale sign. Obviously, the fitness side of things, when you can tell if people have got the nuts to go through it based on the fitness, because that is going to get a lot of people out. The other aspect is how well people deal with being cold, wet, and miserable. And you get an exposure to that. Hunter's Moon, I think, is the first exercise. You get like a night at Woodbury or whatever, but Hunter's Moon is the first one. And you're going to do wet and dry routine, and for those who don't know what wet and dry routine is, basically it's exactly as it sounds. Every evening you will be made to be soaking, going into water, and then you have to get out of that kit when you're in your bed, which is not very often, and then you have to put that kit back on, and putting wet kit back on of a winter's evening to sit there to guard against an imaginary enemy is pretty soul destroying, and most people hold their hand up eventually and say, I've had enough of this shit and they can't handle it anymore. And they'll make up some bullshit excuse. Yeah. But most of the time it's that. So when people can see the funny side of it, do you know what I mean? And have banter about how fucking much they were shivering. You know, I can remember one time when I fell asleep with my foot in the river. I had to wake up and obviously do sentry, and I couldn't feel my foot for 2 days. It was fucking freezing. It's January. Cunts, mate. Saw the leg, and they just left me there. That's my turn to sleep, and they left me there for an hour just because they thought it was funny. Yeah. But obviously I got on with that, and I saw other things like that, and people who could just endure that discomfort, and you kind of knew they've got the grit.
Certain amount of embracing the fact that this is going to be fucking miserable. Yeah. And I'm just going to do it anyway. Yeah.
There's one other thing which definitely was applicable to me. I find it harder, and I think the guys who pass out for that find it harder to put their hand up to say they can't do something, even it's to their detriment if they end up getting injured and whatever sort of stuff, as opposed to a lot of people find it. this is not for me. Like, for me, that would be the worst thing in the world to ever say. And I don't know why that is. Like, I haven't really unpacked that, to be honest. But I just never do that.
Yeah.
Especially something on a physical nature that if I can't handle being cold, well, am I even Scottish?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that was kind of like, that was my mentality. I didn't even know that existed until I went and did that. But I was like, I'm not letting this beat me. No motherfuckers beating me here. Like,
yeah.
You know,
The
so
sort of
another winner.
hierarchy of it all.
yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I think
It is
so.
good. It drives people to places. I think it's a very important aspect of a young man's life is the sort of like fraternity, not so much in the sort of, you know, American frat sense, but that sort of pushing each other, driving towards the same goal, but you're each doing it independently. There's bits of that in martial arts as well. If you get with a good group, obviously it's sort of hyper dependent on how much the people care around you about what you're doing. It's not the same as the Marines, obviously, because that's, you know, you are all trying to do this one thing as a sort of life choice. It's not a hobby. But that sort of collective drive is definitely something that's missing, I think, from most young men's lives. And probably speaks to why, you know, to go down a bit of a rabbit hole, like most young men under the age of 25, I think it's most men at the age of 25 still live at home and things like that. There's just not as much of that, you know, that bloke next to you, you watch him doing it. And this even speaks to stuff with like clients, for example, people who've been training in the gym for a while, not really seeing the progress that they've been wanting to see. A question that I will often ask people is, what's the gym you're training like? Like, what are the other people doing there? So, for example, I work at a pure gym, and recently I started training at Muscleworks, which is a much more, you know, spit and sawdust environment. And just via osmosis, as somebody who does this for a living, I found myself pushing harder because you're around other people who are pushing harder. You can look at the guy next to you. What's he got on the stack? And like, even if you're not lifting the same as him and not doing silly things like, oh yeah, just load the bar up, fuck my spine, let's do it. But just little things like that, being in an environment that promotes that kind of attitude is definitely something to search for. And it's probably easier being in Royal Marine training because it's around you everywhere all the time. And as an adult whose career is in something else, who's trying to, you know, push themselves physically, you have to then go out and seek that environment, which can be difficult for people to find, which is probably a point worth touching on, is, you know, the experiences that you picked up from training to be a Royal Marine and then training to be training other people to be a Royal Marine yourself. Is there anything that you've taken that you use in your coaching? Is there any sort of like mindset stuff that you'll use with people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty light-hearted human, but I use dark motivation. Like, so I mean, first and foremost, like, to touch back on, like, the environment is key for everything. So, like, even if it's that immediate environment, I try to create. And you know, I've trained you, didn't you? You know, I'm quite casual with my approach, but I don't mince my words. You know, if I don't think you're working hard enough, I'll fucking tell you.
Yeah.
And not in a negative coaching sense. I'll be in a, like, try to, like, to build you up a little bit of banter, obviously, but especially with our dynamic because you were younger. But for my own training, and I try and get clients done, so whenever I'm pushing hard, I think about my identity as a Royal Marine. Like, okay, and once a Marine, always a Marine. And I think about that, and it's really invested in here, and it really helps me. Like, what? This is fucking ridiculous. Okay, you're letting the core down if I be a pussy.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, this is really dark, like, but if I'm doing something that's really challenging, I think to myself, like, if I don't do this, my daughter dies.
Yeah.
Right, I go to a dark place. Now, I'm not saying that people do that, but I try and get people to have those little mantras, those little thoughts, to be able to create that. Also, I try and get them to sort of train in environments. If they're not training with me because they're obviously online, I'm like, where are you training? You've got to be around, like you said, these people, don't you? Right? And just having, like, understanding, okay, this is part of your identity, and you have to continue to prove this to yourself and the others around you. Like, so you have to talk as if you have achieved without sounding like a prick, or behave like you have achieved. Like, think in the present tense. I am this. I have this. Not I want to have this. Like, okay, I would like to have that. So I try and get people just to embody that identity, because then it just flows through in everything they do. So I mean, Because that's what being a Royal Marine's all about. It's like your representation of like a very, very special cohort of people, and how you like etiquette, really important, right? You know how that important it is. And even going into a gym, that doesn't employ good etiquette. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I like training Muscle Works as well, but the etiquette in that place is fucking atrocious. So I stopped training there when I was living in London because it just drove me up the wall. And those little things, like just making sure that you identify and show the world who and what you are, because then they have expectations.
Yeah.
You know, like if you train, I train in groups all the time now. My own training, and all my guys that I train with, my friends, they all recognise Gus Martin. We'll go as hard as anybody in that group, if not harder. And I continually tell them that I'm going to fucking kill them. I'm going to smash them.
Yeah.
I don't, because I'm freaking 7,000. You know what I mean? Like, but I always tell them that, so their expectations, so they up their game. And I surrounding yourself. If I trained with you these days, you'd fucking tear me a new asshole. Like, you started doing that even when you were like almost slightly fat, but I would still go toe to toe with you in effort, because it's in there. You know?
Yeah, the competition. It's not necessarily even about the performance aspect. Yeah. Like, it's quite funny that occasionally you'll come across people like this on the jiu-jitsu side of things. So you'll come across this bloke. I'm thinking of a particular individual who I won't name. But like, not the most athletic guy at all, tries real hard at jiu-jitsu, but he will come up and shit talk you and just be like, I'm gonna fucking finish you. I'm gonna fucking finish, like, and just push your buttons to get more out of you. And there's definitely, I'd love to have more training environments like that. Unfortunately, it doesn't really sell as much, and it sells to a very particular sort of person who probably, doesn't really need that pushing in the first place. But it's definitely something to index on, is being in an environment that pushes you, and also pushing your environment, giving people shit here and there, it could even be, a colleague you have who's also into fitness, like just nudging them about something, and then you have to then back it up, which provides you with motivation. And then the reward is, that feeds into that feedback loop, motivation, action, results, and then, it's all...
I, as you know, go to these 2 fitness retreats every year that I sort of work on, with Mark. Mark Roper Health, if anyone wants to go on. They're great fitness retreats in Portugal. But it's April and October every year, towards the end of April, towards the start of October. But it pushes me, because I know that we're going to go there and have a lovely time and get on the lash and all that sort of stuff, but there's going to be some hard training there, and I've got to be at least the second fittest guy on there, if not the fittest.
Yeah.
And putting events in the diary, I fucking hate the high rocks, right? But I've done a load of them, right? Because they're very simple, and they force you to train for something, and I don't want to look shite, especially if I'm doing it with Luke. I always want to be able to beat him, you know what I mean?
Are you a hybrid rock star?
Well, I literally read that the other day, that's how it came from. That's what I was like, I want myself. Off. How is this? But anyway, but putting stuff in the diary, so that's an environment thing. Going on Roper's retreats, that's an environment thing. And people have expectations. The people who go there, the people that I'm meeting, if I go with Ben, or if I go with Luke, or if I go with Roper, or whatever, and that environment, like macro, meso, and micro, are so important. And giving people and having banter is part of development and fun, but it's also about, it keeps you on track. Right? Yeah. And I think that's some people would say it's bullying. I really like the getting shit when I was in the Marines, especially as a nod or a crew.
Yeah.
Because I like that. It develops you. It sinks a lot of people, but for me, I was brilliant. Bring it on. It's
certainly something that is make or break, and also sort of contingent on the person who's receiving it. I was speaking to a client about this today. We were talking about the fire service, and he was saying how there's a bit of a history of some internal bullying within that. And I was explaining how, so my first job was a mechanic, where there is also a big environment of that kind of giving you shit, particularly if you're new, particularly if they can see that it's going to cause a reaction. There's definitely lots of that going on. And I was just explaining how that kind of sort of ribbing, if you know what it is, which is more an earning of your stripes and a testing of the sort of resolve of the man next to you, probably more so in the Marines, is seeing what the guy next to you in a, you know, life or death situation is willing to tolerate to some degree. Maybe it's not thought of that in such an acute sense, but it's definitely part of the whole overall thing going on. It is character development, and it is, you know, also ingratiating you into the fraternity at the end of the day. It's like, once you sort of go through that, prove you can deal with it, it eases off a little bit. Not to say that it ends, but it becomes sort of fewer and further between, but also then there's periods of intensity within that when required, I think. So
it also is a good perspective, you know, because if you can get through it, whatever that is, and I think like being a mechanic, a young mechanic, a chef, any of these sort of blue collar jobs, like that is a really important part, especially as a young man, because it gives you perspective, like, because you have that feeling of inadequacy and not really knowing what you're doing, and like, fucking hell, this is horrendous.
Yeah.
And then like you go all the way to the point. It's kind of like finishing primary school. You're like over the top, and you get to fucking secondary school, and you're like, fuck's sake, I'm gonna get my cunt kicked in. But like you serve your time, but it gives you perspective, because then you're presented, like when you go from primary school to secondary school, you kind of remember what it feels like at the start of primary school. It's a different environment, but the feelings are still the same.
Yeah.
And like going through that as an adult with an adult brain is really important, because then because you're going to continuously deal with very challenging situations, okay, throughout your adult life. And if you haven't dealt with really challenging situations when you're most like physically able, okay, and the most energy, the chances are your circle just pulls in. If you've faced that head on, you've had a real horrendous time. I mean, I imagine the mechanics situation's fucking hard. That is like, but you get through it and you earn their respect, and you become a good mechanic.
Or very good at making tea.
Oh, very good at making tea. Like, you know, I worked in the construction game, and like taking shit and good at doing the joinery. Like, but you get through it, and you can use that in other aspects of your life, and you don't fear the world so much. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've had that really hard environment, because you're like, I've done that. I mean, how hard can this be?
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, it's definitely a thing of like, you know, you've had somebody screaming in your face, calling you a cunt. Like, if somebody pushes in the line in front of you at Sainsbury's, life just gets, you're just like, I don't care at all. Yeah. Like, nothing is going to break the resolve then. Sort of congruent to that, in nothing breaking your resolve, a particular story you once told me of you being on ops in Afghanistan and still managing to put on muscle tissue, I do believe the story goes, using a pull-up bar made out of something that was meant for something very, very different, which we can either cover or not cover, entirely up to you. I just wanted you to sort of tell that story as much as you would like to, because there's, you know, this culture of, you know, optimal training, blah, 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 all the rest of it. Everyone wants to get 100% of everything right, majoring in the minors, as it were, stepping over pounds to pick up pennies. And the process in and of itself is quite simple. You add more weight to the bar every time you go in, and you eat in accordance with that. So I'd just like you to sort of tell that story, and sort of how you judge that, and sort of set the scene a little bit. Yeah,
so I mean, prior to deploying, I'd basically never touched, I had done some weights, but like very like, you know, like I'd spoken about like lat pull downs, whatever, like in that gym. But realistically, for like doing Royal Marine stuff, it's mostly calisthenics. So and a lot of cardiovascular work. Yeah, you have to climb ropes and stuff like that, but you don't see massive guys doing it. Like, you really don't. They're not. The occasional guys do it, right?
Yeah.
So when I deployed, I was quite fit, as you'd imagine. Like, you know, pre-training to go to Turkestan was pretty hard, and but I was really cardiovascular fit, very calisthenics fit. But when I got there, like, it was a bit of a shit show. My company got split up. I was part of Zulu Company 4-5 Commando, and instead of going to one place, went to another place, and then went from that place to this fucking Shitville, Tennessee, and this patrol base, and it was nothing.
Where was Shitville, Tennessee?
So it was a place called Patrol Base Tangiers, and it was like about a mile into Sangin town.
Oh.
Right, and basically, in where Afghanistan, where the British soldiers served, predominantly was Helmand.
Yeah.
You have this big river that goes all the way down the Helmand River, funny old thing, and on either side of it you've got what's known as the green zone, because you have the irrigation ditches, and you have various towns all the way down, right? Okay.
There's a name for those ditches, isn't there? There's like a specific word for them. Not to take you off. Anyway,
if there is, I can't remember. Like, I just remember them being deep, muddy, and to go through like time after time again. But we got put out to patrol base Tangiers, and there wasn't very many of us because we had to get all split up. I mean, I know how many people was in that patrol base. They would have come in and made us into skewers, but thankfully they didn't. But there was definitely no gym, right? So there was like, it basically was an old governor's house, and don't imagine a grand house. It's a thing made of mud, very thick walls, big holes in the fucking ceiling, burned out APCs from the Russians. Okay, you know, so you knew you were there, right?
Yeah.
But there's no gym.
Yeah.
So in the FOBs, which is, I can't remember what FOB stands for.
Forward
right?
operating
base. You know that, right? That they have a tent with some gym equipment. In the big bases, they have a decent gym. Do you know what I mean? So, but there they had nothing. So what we did have was this bar. We're like, why is it so high, man? Like, because you couldn't jump up and get it.
Yeah.
Right? You had to get a stool. Even the tallest motherfuckers. I'm like, what is going on here? And like, there was nothing metal in this place whatsoever, and it was fucking edged in the walls. I'm like, why is it so high? Your feet are definitely not touching the ground, even if you're like 6'17". And then we were like asking the interpreter, and he's like, oh yeah, this is where like the governor of the province or the warlord, I don't know the fuck he would be, probably just some fucking gangster. This is where he hung people.
Jesus
So
Christ.
it's like, I was like, fuck, that's it. But brilliant for doing pull-ups, right? Because it was stable. So we had a pull-up bar, and then we had these pickets that obviously go around the PB, right? That you could put wire in between. So we had loads of them. So we stripped a few back, obviously. Like, take that in the security, and we taped them together so you could do like curls and presses and that. And we had this cool box that didn't really work, so we used that as a bench. And then like some of the engineers came down, and obviously I worked on the tools myself, so we made this dip station, and like we made doing mended, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously we're patrolling every day, so we didn't do too much legs, did a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like fast forward like 7 months, and I hadn't seen lads from my my company for ages. They'd been down in FOB Gibraltar, I think, and some guys had been elsewhere, and I hadn't really noticed. But they were like, fucking hell, Gus. And my mate Barry, he's just like, fucking hell, man, you must have put on 8-10 kilos, man. And obviously I've been eating rations, boil in the bag rations.
Extremely tasty.
Beautiful stuff, especially when you get to eat the same one every day.
Yeah,
it's
I
the
can imagine
best.
that.
I love heartburn from like corned beef hash in the morning. Like it's fucking brilliant.
Shitting once every 2 weeks.
Oh, it's horrendous, man. Shitting next to your mate every 2 weeks, like, you know what I mean, a big hole. But I put on size, man. I put on size. Like I put on a lot of size. I got pretty strong relative to that, and everyone. And I was like, hang on. So I've been eating shite, hardly any protein. I've been eating definitely to some degree a caloric surplus, right? Because they're very caloric, these things. But I mean, you're patrolling for 8 to 10 hours a day in like very warm conditions, so you're burning a lot of calories doing that, with minimal exposure to good quality food. I mean, good quality food would be a patrol up to the FOB to have noodles, tuna, and powdered eggs once a week.
Nice.
And that's your treat. So, you know, but it showed me very, 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 like, not quickly, but say apparently as soon as I realised actually I had put on some size, and I looked. I mean, I wish we weren't in the digital age so much then. If you know what I mean, the digital cameras, but I was like a different human. Like a different human. I also had a shoulder, but that's a different story.
That's all right. It'll heal itself. Just walk around with loads of weight on your back.
Yeah, that was definitely the instruction.
Was your aura ring telling you that you needed?
It was significantly telling me that. Like, you can imagine.
And your chain of command deeply appreciated that.
Oh, they were all of it. They would have a weekly brief or a nightly brief. They like to have a look at people's metrics, to make sure that their recovery scores were particularly high.
Was that during or after the mindfulness practice?
That was actually just after the breath work. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, I wanted that story because it's, a testament to a phrase you once taught me, which is you don't need more resources, you need to be more resourceful.
For sure.
It's something that people need to take into their fitness journeys. Like, things don't need to be perfect. Yes, you're going to have like a weird pain in the back of your knee occasionally, and this isn't me telling you to completely ignore it when you're definitely injured, etc. But there is a certain amount of just knuckling down, getting on with it, and also just chasing the basics. Like, Are you getting stronger? Yes. Okay, we're some of the way there. Are you sleeping? I mean, I'm sure you probably weren't sleeping all that much, but the point being, the sort of 3 pillars: nutrition, training, sleep, of like, that's 90% of what you're ever going to achieve in regard to sports performance, if we leave something else out of it. As long as you're getting those 3 things down and you're doing them consistently, you will get 90% of wherever you were going to end up anyway.
Agreed. I mean, I think the other one my 4 pillars, I added like mind management. Now, unbeknown to me, like, there was a lot of mind management going on there, okay, within myself, okay, within, like I said, the troop sergeant, the troop boss, me as the corporal, okay, telling, like, you know, you're managing people's minds and strengthening their resolve all the time and their resilience by just doing hard shit all the time. And like getting up in the morning, like after an hour's sleep, to do a training session. And I don't mean, like, literally the hardest routine I ever did. I think for like 30 days, I think I survived on an hour's sleep. I still trained every day. And I was still doing 2 patrols, like on the days we're patrolling, and then like a day like on the sangars, and then day. And it's continuously reinforcing, okay, that kind of like ability to go, nah, fuck it, I'm fucking doing it, man. I don't care how I feel, I'm fucking doing it.
Yeah.
And at the end of those 30 days, 6 months, 7 months, like results, and you feel like, yeah, it was hard, and yeah, I was tired, but you know, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know, like about it and sit down and wish you were doing something about it. No.
Yeah.
I just
between you and what you want is hard.
Yeah, of course it is, man. If it was easy, every fucker would have it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely a point to take away. Is like, a lot of doing hard things sounds nice on paper, and it's sort of motivating to think about doing hard things, and even talking about hard things. I think they did a study on it, and they found that talking about doing the things that you want to achieve releases the same amount of dopamine as actually doing it in the first place. But once you're in it and it's every day, and you know, it's easier if you can tap out. But when there's no tapping out, you're like, that's when you really have to build that resolve of like, okay, this is life now, and accepting that. And it's an incredibly simple concept on paper, but then to sit there and go through it is something very, very different.
You have, I mean, dude, you've heard me talk a lot about this before, and like, I mean, the drinking culture that exists in the force has really helped me. It seems incredible that I'm saying that. Like,
yeah,
I'm not a massive drinker, but it's always been part of my life. And I don't want to sphere down this too. I mean, I said to you what I'd like to mention this sort of stuff as we chat.
No, we can use this as a
I'm not like, I think the ability for you, because if all the ducks in a row, life is easy, right? Okay, you still have to put the graft in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you get good sleep, if you like, okay, if I can eat good food, blah blah blah, go to a nice gym, it makes it a lot easier, right? Okay, but you still got to do the graft, right? So getting in good shape, whether you're not, okay, you don't drink or whatever, you don't. Any vices, kudos to the person for that, and like, if that's your mentality, wonderful. I've never been that. And the question I always pose to people is like, okay, because everyone's very polar and they find it very easy to be polar. I am this, I am that. I don't do this, I don't do that. I don't like that. Like, I don't like those labels in terms of nutrition. Like, if you ask me, if I had to put it, I'm an omnivore. If I can eat anything I want, but if I want to be a vegan, I'll be a vegan. If I want to be a pescatarian, I'll be a pescatarian. I just won't shout about it. I'll just eat.
Yeah.
Same with sexuality. If I want to pump lads, I pump lads. Same as if I like pumping chicks. I do like pumping chicks. I'll do that, right? But I don't care. There's no label. I just am me.
Yeah.
And like, with the polar nature of people is that they feel that, like, in certain circumstances, okay, it's impossible to do this. Like, a lot of people, I believe it is impossible to be fit, healthy, lean, strong as an adult, still drink, take drugs, smoke, whatever. I'm not advocating any of those things, by the way, right?
Yes, but now, they can be done
They can be done, and you can be healthy, okay, relative. Can you be as healthy? Like, tomorrow I'm going raving, so I will be doing a load of booze with a bit of powder, right? And I couldn't give a fuck who knows that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's been part of my life. I didn't do any powder when I was in the Corps, didn't do any drugs at all, right? But I like doing it.
Yeah.
Will I still get up, okay, on Sunday morning and be active? I'm going to see Peter, like fucking Peter Nixie, fucking Ginger Bollocks, going to see his head. I'm going to Gypsy Kings next day. Monday morning I'll be in the gym. Well, I did 9 pints yesterday, right? Now, I'm not advocating drinking, right? But I was in bed by 10:30, got up, did some exercise this morning before I went and met Chand.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that. I had a message from someone, a client, an old client of mine. He says, "Well, how are you getting on?" Blah blah blah. I says, "Yeah, I'm good, Ollie." He says, like, how I saw you were in London, what'd you get up to? I says, oh, I went out, had some beers with my brother. And he's like, oh, tell me about it. And I says, oh, the babysit, I'm fucking 7 with him and 2 with Olivia. And he's like, are you going to be training today, Gus? I was like, of course training today.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, if you could bottle that and sell it, you'd be a millionaire.
Yes.
And I was like, what you mean? If I bottled and sold, not being a little because I mean, fucking hell, if you can't get up because you've had a drink the night before, if you drink until 3 a.m. doing a load of nosebag and you've got the fear, there's a bit more to it than that.
And shit yourself, yeah.
Yeah, and shit yourself, right? But if you can't, like, that's to get back to my initial point is that when the environment is such that doesn't accept that,
yeah.
Like, if I turned to you and went, I'm sorry, I can't do Troop Fizz today because I had a few drinks last night. That fucking fist would go through my face.
Yeah.
And that is installed in me now. I'm like, I cannot do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll definitely not have good performance.
No.
But I think that is an element of building resilience. And I think that really helps you as a young man. So ostensibly getting bullied, doing really hard physical training, and having the ability to deal with a hangover and still get on with your day-to-day.
Yeah.
I think they're generally really important for people.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the, you've taught me a lot through the years. But the sort of going out drinking and making sure that you get up and do the things you were going to do the next day has definitely been a key part of it. In the rare times when I've managed to get blasted enough where it's like, okay, this is like, if I leave the house right now, I'm just going to spew. It's a no-go. But I can remember every single one of those times, and it's something that lives with me as like a point of shame. I'm just like, fuck. Like, you can't do stuff like this. It's just feeble. I don't think shaming people is, the best way, especially initially, to sort of get them to see why a good degree of resilience is going to be important to them and how that actually plays out into their everyday life. So, for example, if you're a guy who does like Thursday beers at the office or whatever, and then you get to work from home the next day, your environment is permissive to that. Whereas like in our job, it's a bit different. Like if if you cancel a session, you don't get paid. Like it's as simple as that. And B, it's the sort of accountability aspects as well. Like people lose faith in you. There's a bit more bite back of like not doing that. But then for those other people, so people who work more corporate jobs when they can get away with a bit more, how is it that you help instill this resilience in them, especially through the online coaching portal?
So that's a really important, it's identity basically. So I have to try and find out their values. So I take them through a model which is, it comes from the Path Through the Jungle, a lot of this stuff. A little bit is relevant to like habit change through the James Clear work. But the Path Through the Jungle basically is a course / a book that is the kind of like the big version of the Chimp Paradox, right? And they do like online courses, which I've done, subsequent through, and I'm going to go on a retreat like early next year. But I was always big into value alignment and understanding how you're genetically sort of set, because that can't change, but you can definitely kind of manipulate, and create an environment to kind of help you with that, pros and cons. But understanding their value set, what they value, and then attributing what they want to do and finding a link between the two. So I get them to do that. But there's a big part of the Path Through the Jungle which talks about what's known as your stone of life, right? Your stone of life, there's 3 elements to it. There's your life force, there's like your values, like what brings value to you in the moment, and what you value in terms of honor, integrity, and all that sort of jazz, and it's endless. But there's also this like, I forget what the name of it is, but it's basically your 10 things, of which 10 sayings ostensibly that you find applicable to you that help you in your life, right? So like the magic I seek is in the work I avoid, right? That can be applicable to most scenarios, and really digging into them and your values. And when a situation becomes challenging, finding one of them, they call them kind of autopilots that you can use to overcome that obstacle and build the identity. And the more the which they do that and they reinforce. But you have to really start with kind of like, right, where does this tie together, right? So for example, if a client wants to get lean and wants to lose a load of body fat, right, what do you value the most? Have you got kids? Oh yeah, I've got kids. All right, well, do you want to be a role model for your kids? And they're like, of course I want to be a role model for your kids. Well, your kids will do as you do, right? So if you eat poorly and you're fat, your kids, chances of being fat, if your parents, one parent is fat, 50%.
Yeah.
2 parents, 85%.
Yeah.
So you're ostensibly, so it's a little bit of like reverse psychology. If you're fat, you're going to give the problems to your kid. They probably won't change, okay, for their sake, but they'll definitely change for their children's sake. And you'll be present them with that. So it's just getting that link between the values and then using that Stone of Life framework that people can then refer back to. But they have to, obviously, you have to build a rapport with them first. So initially it's about, you know, providing the information, getting the trust, letting them feel and look a little bit different, and then you dive into that. And I generally do that about week 4 to 6 in the process. Right, some people a little bit longer, some people a little bit earlier. But
it depends on the kind of person and how responsive.
Yeah.
It's definitely a massively overlooked part of most people's fitness journey is their why. Why are you doing it? And the root of it, not, you know, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to get into better shape? Oh, you know, I just kind of feel like it. You know, I got a wedding coming up, or say that this is a very prototypical example. Somebody getting in shape for a wedding, and it's like, okay, so why do you want to get in shape for your wedding? Like, I don't do too much of this, but this definitely is something worth looking into yourself. And obviously, if you are looking for somebody to help you with this kind of thing, particularly with finding your why and sort of the mental framing aspect, I'd definitely say that Gus is the man for this. Like, it's something he helped me with, helped countless other people with, including Ibethan Goat,
What's in the other day?
Yeah, who we will leave nameless. But finding your why. So going back to that example, why do you want to get in shape for your wedding? It's like, are you scared about something? Like, now that this is a finality, do you now want to make your appearance more permanently attractive?
And why?
Yes.
And what? I want to get fit for summer, I get this, and you're like, guys, the first thing I tell them, right, is like, from this point onwards, until you die, you have to train 3 times a week. Right? If you're not prepared to do that, then I am not the guy for you. Yeah. Right? Because I'm not wasting my time with you going yin yang, yin yang, yin yang, yin yang. Like, I'm just not dealing with that shit. So are you in? And if they don't convince me, they can fuck. Right? I'm not taking them through that. Right? It's different to personal training where people are coming in. If they this is how I differentiate online training, online coaching, okay, to personal training. You want to get good at exercise, get a personal trainer. Right? Alfie's a brilliant personal trainer. Trains around the corner here in Hoxton. I know he's a brilliant personal trainer because I trained that cunt. Excuse my French. Personal training is wonderful, but it shouldn't be an accountability tool. You should be wanting to get better at exercise. Online coaching is about the whole thing, okay, like in the gym, out the gym, right? Online coaching is more suitable for people who are actually competent with exercise. I know you haven't asked this question, but it's a more affordable way of continuing for the rest of your fucking life, right? Especially if you're a very accountability-driven human. So you have to get. I personally feel people have to agree for the rest of their lives. Right? They don't necessarily have to be coached by you or I for the rest of their life, but it has to be an investment now for the rest of their lives, especially if you're training people over 40. Because if they don't train 3 times a week, their 60s, 70s, and if they get to their 80s, it's going to be turbo, right? And I'm not okay with that. Right? If you come to me and say, I've got a wedding in 10 weeks and I don't want to train with you or coach with you after it, I'm like, catch you later, Tambo.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what guys do in the city. I'm just like,
to the 10-week transformation coaches you go. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think a good thing that we sort of displayed there is the kind of people that you're looking for. People who are looking to make a change, not just for the now, but who are looking to change who they are to some degree. You know, and for some people that's going to be more meaningful than others.
For sure. The thing is, like, once you get to past a certain age, like, your drivers change a little bit. I'm in my 40s. I'm never going to be any more athletic than I was in my 20s and my 30s. I recognise that. I still dig out blind, but I'm not going to achieve that. But in your 40s, you're basically, your competition is ensuring that your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and hopefully your 80s good. And, like, I can put up with people, like, their ages with you or younger, because, like, they're in the dating market and all they want to do is find a mate and bang and all whatever it is they're doing. If people in their 40s who say I want to train hard for a wedding, I'm just like, shut the up. Like, that is ridiculous, mate. You've probably got kids by this point, which you probably want to be around for when they have kids and not be a fat mess.
Yeah.
Like, I just find it blows my mind of people of a certain age, a certain amount of experience on this planet, and they still can't see the bigger picture, particularly of my generation. Those older, they didn't have the exposure towards exercise, the value. People of my generation, no excuses. Come on, you can see your own parents like dwindling.
Yeah.
You know, my mum's 80 and she's doing good, but she's fucked. You know what I mean? My dad, fucking, well, I'm not going to that. You know, he's fucked.
Yeah.
Good lad, but he's fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it comes back to that phrase, especially with people with kids side of things. It's, you know, everyone's super keen to say they'd die for their kids. I think Ben reposted this, but would you live for them?
I know.
Would you put the work into being healthy for them? And, you know, there's plenty of like video extreme examples of this. Like a friend of mine, another coach, Jack, he posted a video relatively recently of somebody in America, like massively overweight. I don't know if it was a mum or dad, but the stroller that she was carrying sort of rolled away from them and it started going towards the road and they weren't capable of running for the stroller. Somebody else, yeah, so somebody else came and grabbed it for this person, whoever they were. But it's sort of a testament, like, you do not want to be that person. And like, there's plenty of scenarios that, you know, you could bring to mind. You're in a burning house, you're trapped in a car, there's water coming in, etc. Like anything you could think of. And it's not a case of, you know, you then go into the gym and you're hanging off the pull-up bar whilst doing, you know, cable pulls to train for the specifics of escaping a burning building or whatever. But it's like, are you physically competent enough to be useful in that situation? Bare minimums. Not, are you, you know, is this something that, are you like fire trained? Are you, you know, etc. trained? It's like, at the bare minimum, when shit hits the fan, are you actually
especially
useful?
as a man? I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, as a man, like, you're supposed to, I'm not saying like you have this like set rules and stuff, but as a man, I feel quite manly, and I want to be able to do things, okay, that like I should be able to do for a long period of time. That has also included going to the toilet on my own, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and getting out of bed and all that sort of stuff. I can see in my peer group, not essentially, some people are struggling. They're using the, like, you know, the sides of the chairs to get up and around. And I was like, what, making like noises when they do shit? You're like, what? That it blows my mind. And like, when you've got people, especially down here, because people have kids later down south than they do up north.
Yeah.
Like, if you're having kids, right, okay, in your 40s, man, right, you're not, those, they're going to uni or school like, until in your 60s. You didn't want to be that old codger embarrassing them, man, eh?
Yeah.
You know, like, or putting a burden on your children.
Yeah.
I mean, that, I say that to my mum all the time, right? You shouldn't be putting a burden on me. That's not the role. You should be fighting fit. I built a gym for my mum, and kudos to my mum. You know, she's a pretty fit woman for turning 80. But I'm like, don't be a burden to me. That's not fair. I will never be a burden to my daughter unless I get hit by something. But even then, I've got enough money, hopefully, by then to be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
And like, I just don't understand how people can't see that. By getting fat and getting diabetes, whatever it is, they're putting a burden on their children. They're limiting their children's lives as a result of their selfish acts of not being able to actually execute what they need to do. That's not acceptable, man.
Yeah. And in multiple facets, financially, emotionally, physically. Like, if you have to be a full-time carer for your parent, you can't work, you can't go, like, you can't complete your education. You know, these are several, just minimal aspects of what the broader picture is there.
And your physical health, like, so you see people kind of like going inward, and their mental and their capacity goes in. But if you're physically strong, it bleeds into your brain. Not literally, obviously, like, but it allows you to feel strong and confident, so you'll end up continuously learning and stuff, like, you know, and keeping up with the trends so they can keep in touch with younger folk. Like, one of my biggest fears is not being able to understand what's going on with the youth. I've got a daughter who's 18. She's going to have kids. I want to know what the fuck is going on in their lives, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I don't understand people who don't want to do that, especially when they've got children. And the premise of that is being fit, strong and healthy. Because if you're not fit, strong and healthy, you won't have the energy to do that shit. And like, you don't have to pay a lot of money. You only have to give up a little bit of time, right, to do this shit. And you might even actually enjoy it.
You probably will.
Fucking well. Who doesn't like being strong?
Yeah.
It's the best feeling ever, isn't it?
Yeah, especially once you start seeing results.
Fucking hell, man, yeah. It's wild.
It is. It is wild. Okay, we're up on time, so where can people find you? We know who you're looking for in regard to the coaching side of things. Where can people find you? What kind of work do you offer for people? And yeah.
So I run 2 programs. I run an individual one-to-one online coaching program called the Fit at 40 Blueprint. You can go to coachgusmartin.com. I'll get to see all about that. I also run a group program, which is a sort of a intro to it, called Dad Bod to DILF, and I'll be soon launching Mum Bod to MILF. That's happening in September and October and November. You can find me on socials if you just type in like CGM_online coaching on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And that, my friend, is that.
Perfect. Brilliant. That's us.